with the government offices, and it is Parliament that needs this report so that it can be acted upon. So as you give us direction, Honorable Speaker, I request that the report needs to be brought before this House soonest possible, and
fair enough.
most probably today.
You made your point. The Honorable Osoro, I think, comprehensively respond to both. The two areas that have been mentioned, the power outages in Mandera, and frankly, the whole country in this month of Ramadan, because even in my constituency in the DAP, I wish I was not on the chair. I would have really contributed. We have power rationing. So then on the overall, how you'll engage KPLC and the rest to see that we respect Kenyans in this holy month now.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I first want to thank...
And the issue of also the hardships, yes.
The water, yes. I want to thank the Honorable Bashir for raising this very important matter, Honorable Speaker. And it's indeed unfortunate that in this time and era, that people still rely on power from a neighboring country. Yet they pay taxes in Kenya and they live within this country, they live within the jurisdiction of this country, and they are Kenyans in all rights. So Honorable Bashir and the members that have spoken is very important. I mean, it really shows that we are representing our people very well. But Honorable Speaker, to answer to that, there has been an ongoing process under the Minister of Energy, Honorable Speaker, to light up the entire country. And if you agree with me, Honorable Speaker, just about 2 or 3 weeks ago, the head of state, alongside the Minister for Energy, Honorable Speaker, signed some agreements with some suppliers, Honorable Speaker. And there is a process to light up the entire region of the Northeastern, Honorable Speaker, as far as I'm concerned. But I do not want, Honorable Speaker, to hold brief for the ministry. I want to commit that in the next week, we will have the Committee of Energy respond comprehensively upon, of course, getting the minister himself before them and answer to the progress they are doing as far as energy is concerned, Honorable Speaker. But on the second point on water, the hardship and water, Honorable Speaker, it is unfortunate that 10 years post-devolution, we are still talking about water challenges. Because it would interest members to know that water is largely devolved. And much of the processes as far as water management is concerned, Honorable Speaker, is actually devolved. As we speak, Honorable Speaker, even as I answer the honorable members that have spoken about the water, a strange disease, a very mysterious disease, has befallen my people, Honorable Speaker, in the village. I mean, from the water. They have taken, today the ministry has given a report that they've been drinking contaminated water, Honorable Speaker. But who answers such? That question, Honorable Speaker, should be answered by the county governments. That 10 years post-devolution, we still have challenges of water in our counties, even having been given huge amounts of money, Honorable Speaker, to manage the water challenges in the counties. We need sometimes to ask ourselves this question: what exactly are county governments doing as far as this water challenge is concerned? There is water resource, Honorable Speaker, is becoming very scarce by the day. The climate change issues, you know, we are currently, of course, the sun, like you've said, in the other part of the country is at, I mean, the heat is at 40 degrees, Honorable Speaker, as we speak right now. Nairobi currently is at about 35%, Honorable Speaker, 35 degrees Celsius. For the very first time in my region, Honorable Speaker, we are at 37. A place that rains every day, Honorable Speaker. You know, the other day, Honorable Speaker, the Honorable Kibagendo was saying that walking around the Kisii streets, each person is walking around with their whole bag of, dust. Because when you get to the house, people look like, I don't know how, because it is very, very hot all over, Honorable Speaker. So even as we talk about those challenges, we perhaps need to pose this question to county governments that while the national government should be working on the energy sector, like I've committed, the Energy Committee will handle this, and that I've said that there is a process already of procuring the suppliers of energy, Honorable Speaker. Like you've seen, you saw the President sign some agreements with some suppliers, Honorable Speaker, and there is a lot of efforts to mitigate the challenges on that part. But on the water, Honorable Speaker, we need to pose this question to the right people. Nairobi, there is a challenge of water. Northeastern, there is challenges of water, Honorable Speaker. Kisii, in all the counties, there is a challenge of water. So we really do not know whether this responsibility or rather the water issue should revert back to national government for easier management or remain in the county government? Because that really, Honorable Speaker, may not really require the hardship allowance per se or the hardship amount per se, money per se. It is actually the prerogative of the county governments to handle that. But instead, they've chosen to spend this money in other, to spend this money in other means or rather in other forms, Honorable Speaker, through putting in unreliable or unnecessary projects, Honorable Speaker, including moving around in convoys, Honorable Speaker, and carrying goons and having 50 vehicles, Honorable Speaker, on the way, and hiring cheering squads in functions. Nowadays they even have hired squads, Honorable Speaker, to attend their functions. They have a group of 200, 300, every governor, and this is very particular, every governor has got a group of about 300 or 400 people on payroll that they move around with, and they tell them to stand or sit in some strategic position just to clap whenever they stand to speak, whether in barrios, whether in churches. That is exactly what they are doing, instead of putting this money in the right place, Honorable Speaker. It is very, very unfortunate. Very, very unfortunate. Sometimes they even direct the people in the county inspectorate, Honorable Speaker, to move around the county, to move their uniforms.
He's responding to points of orders that were raised, but...
Okay.
Otiende Amoro, proceed.
Mr. Speaker, mine is a procedural point of order. And I appreciate the fact that 2 points of order were raised, and you've given the majority whip an opportunity not to respond, but to promise to respond. But now the majority whip is taking us on a lecture session of Kisii politics. How is that relevant to the 2 points of orders that were raised? And yet, Mr. Speaker, my substantive point of order is this.
What's your substantive?
We are 2 hours into our session. We have not come to the first substantive business for this afternoon. And some of us here came for a very specific reason. Mr. Speaker, order number 10 is an order on the NADCO. And it's a report that concerns matters of concern to these citizens, including security. As I speak here today, Mr. Speaker, this morning, I woke up to have lost 5 of my constituents. 5 ladies were buried alive, including a young girl of 27 years who is a graduate. I was hoping we would get to this order so that we speak to the very substantive issues of concern to the nation, and we can leave the issues of Kisii and Nyamira politics to another later session. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Osoro. Honorable Osoro, I agree with you entirely that you are not empowered at all. Well, I shouldn't say at all, but at least under our current system and our constitution when it comes to issues when it comes to issues of water. But all I want you to do is proceed and give a definitive undertaking on the issue of, I think you have settled out the issue of the hardships, the report itself, and the issue of the electricity outages in Mandera and many other places. We share your frustrations with you. Even the chair shares that with you. But it's for you to go and change the law so that if the county governments cannot perform in certain areas, the national government has the powers to step in and perform on that, and then, of course, deduct that from their allocations. So there are ways we can do things. But it's not just to stay here helpless and say it's the county government and they're not doing anything. And I think in the National Assembly here, the House needs to be powerfully proactive for the House to come up with definitive solutions to the problems that are there. Everybody shares with you the frustrations of the county governments. Actually, if there's going to be a referendum right now on whether the county governments should be maintained the way they are, majority of Kenyans are going to vote in a manner that's going to shock everybody. But then proceed and give a definitive undertaking right now on the issue of how soon you can have that report in here, or how soon you can report back on the report here, and the issue of when you are going to engage Kenya Power and Lighting on the issue of the power outages in Mandera and all the Muslim areas right now in this Ramadan period. Proceed.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I really do not want to wish, to correct or rather to respond to what Honorable my learned
Leave the
said.
senior counsel alone.
Because,
both
whatever
me
he's
and you are
accused me-
legal minds. He's a senior counsel, so just
He's
leave it.
done the same mistake that he's actually accused me of. While raising a point of order, Honorable Speaker, he's mentioned his constituency, which was unrelated to this issue.
He's
So
an
we should
elder in
actually
the field, is allowed to make certain small mistakes. So proceed.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, and he should leave the radiator politics out of this when we respond to these questions. But having said that, Honorable Speaker, as I was saying, I only gave out examples of, governance structures that are not responsive to the needs of the people. And I've just said that the issue of the water resource is affecting all the counties, including Nairobi, including the counties in Northeastern, and including the counties of Kisii, Honorable Speaker. It really doesn't, it's not related to politics. And what I would say in that line, Honorable Speaker, is that we perhaps need to push the national government to find a way to work along with the county governments, especially where they are totally incapacitated, especially on the water resource, Honorable Speaker, because they've totally failed, and these honorable members can agree with me, they've really failed entirely to provide the water resource. But on the question of energy, Honorable Speaker, like I've said, my report is that once we have the committee constituted tomorrow, latest Thursday, Honorable Speaker, we perhaps give ourselves about 7 days when they go for elections for their new chairman, and then they'll come up with a structure of maybe the itinerary and the way they want to work, and get the report brought, or rather table the report once they're able to finish with their line.
In the interim, given the fact that people are fasting in Mandera, give an undertaking right now on how you're going to engage Kenya Power and Lighting.
In the interim, Honorable Speaker, immediately we finish here, I'll engage the Minister for the CS for Energy and the PS, Honorable Speaker, and then I'll be able to give the answer on Thursday.
Excellent. Done deal. Now, next order. Honorable members, next order. Honorable TJ Kajuang, the chair has ruled the next order. With all due respect to you, you proceed.
Order number 8, the Anti-Money Laundering and Combating of Terrorism Financing Laws Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 5 of 2025, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to amend the laws relating to anti-money laundering and combating of terrorism financing and proliferation financing and for connected purposes. Order number 9, the National Police Service Commission Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 23 of 2024, second reading, resumption of debate.
Yes, there was an honorable member who had a balance of 8 minutes. I think, what was Kipchumba? Kimayo. Honorable Kimayo is not around? Okay. Honorable members, yes, the MP, Madam Mayaka.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker,
Your intervention. Order. He's on a point of order. The Honorable Murugara. Okay, fair enough. Okay, proceed. Yes, Mayaka, proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I stand to support this particular...
We have 1 hour, 2 minutes on this bill.
I stand to support this particular amendments and thank the Honorable Peter Masara for bringing it forth. Because, Honorable Speaker, psychosocial support for our police officers is very, very vital. Because they have one of the hardest tasks of dealing with the citizens, with wananchi, and we need our police officers to be in the right frame of mind. Honorable Speaker, I like the fact that this particular bill will assist in, among other things, ensuring that there's valuable guidelines to our police officers in terms of stress management. And this will also help them to be able to cope with different situations that they are presented with, and also even for their personal development. Because, Honorable Speaker, we don't want to assume that when they are conducting the services that they do give us out there, that the police are not normal human beings. They are normal human beings, and therefore we have to ensure that they always have adequate psychosocial support while doing their job. Honorable Speaker, one of the recommendations that I'm seeing here is also the fact that this particular support should be able to be divulged to different county levels. And actually, Honorable Speaker, this would even be more beneficial to them if it goes right down to the police station, so that they're able to, anytime they want these particular services, then they're able to access them. Honorable Speaker, some of the advantages that will really help in this is because of their mental strength, because mental strength is very important. Secondly, self-esteem. And Honorable Speaker, even as we say that we want to give them this kind of support, we also need to more frequently to be rewarding and recognizing our police officers. Honorable Speaker, we have very few memories of police officers who have done fantastic jobs in this country. Like, for example, I remember my brother Joash Monari, who was given HSC by the president because of what he did in Westlands when he tried to waylay thieves who are going to distress people. Honorable Speaker, we've also seen that police are very human. If you go to TikTok now, we have a lot of police officers who are very popular. We have the famous Solomon Kirago, who is known for dancing Bora Tujienjoy by Diamond, if I may quote. And he's become very popular. The people around where he serves them love the guy because they associate with him, they feel like he's one with them. And these are some of the things that it is coming from him. It is his own self-esteem. But we need to go further than that and ensure that our police are well taken care of. And Honorable Speaker, psychosocial support does not just mean the clinical aspects of it. This is also in terms of just motivating them, in ensuring that their leadership is always present to ensure that the police are not just doing their job on a routine basis. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, this particular amendment, because it's very brief and I don't want to take a lot of time, it has full support. I hope that we will actually ensure that it is implemented, that this is not just paperwork that we are doing, but that actually there will be proper action to ensure that our police have access to this very important support. With those very few remarks, I support and I thank you.
Yes, what's your point of order, TJ Kajwang?
Mr. Speaker, with due respect, this motion has been debated for 2 hours. It was debated last week, and we have also opened it right now.
Yeah.
2 hours, and there is a balance of just about 1 hour or so. If you check from the Hansard, Mr. Speaker, more than 20 speakers have spoken on it. Would I be in order, Mr. Speaker, to call for you to ask the mover to reply? Because it has been very exhausted, and the issues are in the Hansard, and there are several motions which are lined before us. Some of them are very weighty.
Honorable
Kajwang,
right behind you, there's a member who's interested. In that group, there are members who are interested. Here, there are members who are interested. The rules are very clear. The chair exercises that discretion, but also make sure, order. Also make sure that the democratic rights of certain minority is not muzzled. So, Honorable Murugara, proceed and contribute on the bill.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, yes, I agree with the Honorable TJ that most of the members of the House have actually agreed and supported this bill. But it's also important that we today, because that was then, we also voice a bit of support before we move to the next very important topic or matter on the order paper for this afternoon. Mr. Speaker, allow me to thank the Honorable Masara, because Honorable Masara must have sat down and thought about this bill. He thought through it, and he came up with these very, very important provisions, which he wants they be introduced to the National Police Service Commission Act. Because most of the time, and this is becoming very frequent, that when somebody is employed, everybody thinks a favor has been done to that person, and therefore he should go out there, work, and take care of himself, his family, and anybody else who depends on that person. Nobody sits back to ask how that person is going to work, under what conditions he's going to work, and how it affects that person's mental health. And this applies principally to our police officers, and by extension, to other forces that are disciplined. We've just seen soldiers coming back from Somalia, where they were on a peacekeeping mission, and most of them are in a deplorable state of mind. They've lost it. They've come back as very violent persons who have to be rehabilitated so that they can come back to the normal life of a society. We've seen our police officers all over. Some of them have to be taken to areas which we consider to be hardship. And because they are not used to that kind of life, when they come back to their villages, people think they are mad. And therefore, we now start speaking ill about those who work in the disciplined forces, those who work in the National Police Service, or anywhere else. Therefore, this act by Honorable Masara is timely, that we now need to have programs in place. And we start by legislating for the Kenya Police. And I keep on saying, I have a special interest in the Kenya Police, the National Police Service. I got brothers and sisters who work there, cousins and other relatives. And I always sympathize with everything to do with the National Police Service. Number one, they still do not have what we would call a commensurate pay. They lack that. They are still paid paltry sums of money, which they are supposed to live on and educate their children. And this is becoming a burden to them. They also live in deplorable state where they do not have good houses. Some of them are in tents, others are in makeshift houses where they share a number of families into one room. This is deplorable. So this affects them. And this is why now we have these two sections being introduced by Honorable Masara, that the commission is now under an obligation as a function of the commission, the National Police Service Commission, to establish psychosocial units and formulate programs to promote the mental health and well-being of police officers. From time to time, we have these police officers who require rehabilitation. Some of them have ended in Mathare, and Mathare Hospital is not a rehabilitation center. In fact, it demeans them to take them there because we think they got mental illness. So, the police now have to, under the new Section 12A, provide officers with resources for purposes of their mental health. And let nobody ask where these resources will come from. I can assure this country is not as poor as many people think. It's only that sometimes we are questioned how we apply our resources. Whichever way and whatever we do with those resources, let us apply some of those resources to our police officers so that they are given resources to make sure that they do not lose it when they are working. Number two, they shall in every county establish well-equipped centers in offices, camps, training colleges, and communities for police officers to receive the psychosocial support. That from time to time, policemen are human beings. Let them have a place they can go to, even if it is for counseling, even if it is for whatever other help they require from the society. so that they are integrated back. I mean, it's common sense. You got a gun, you're on your duty, and you confronted by a thug whom you shoot dead. As he sat in that High Court building, as we used to call it those days, he would find himself in tantrums, hallucinating. And he would salute, he would issue commands, and whenever he sat down, he was asked, what was the problem? He would say, I have just seen myself in those airplanes of 1942 to 45, flying over some city and bombing that city. He needed such service. It was not available, and so therefore Chief Justice Cecil Miller was not helped. In fact, it's not just for the disciplined forces. Let's extend this to all our civil servants, and especially those who work in hardship areas where life is not as normal as it is in other areas. Let's have a way of trying to help them so that they are integrated back into the society to become better persons. And those areas include my own constituency, Tharaka. It's a hardship area. The police officers who go there do not earn any hardship allowance. The civil servants who are there do not earn any hardship allowance. And this is why I was taking it up yesterday to ask, why should Tharaka, for purposes of its civil servants, just like it has done to teachers through TSC, they receive a hardship allowance, as it has happened to judicial officers through JSC, they receive a hardship allowance. Let us also have civil servants in the Tharaka constituency, in the Egambangombe sub-county, receiving hardship allowances so that they are able to work better in the country. With those remarks, I beg to support.
The Honorable Matuse, I see your name here. Are you here for something else, or you want to contribute on
Mr.
this?
Speaker, I was in support of the call by the Honorable TJ for the mover to be called to reply.
The Honorable Basil.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't know why members are not very much interested to support the police, considering what police officers are going through and what they do. I know an article report has a lot of interest, particularly with an understanding of broad-based government. But let's talk, at least let's focus on the police, because they have a very significant role, Mr. Speaker. The reason why I actually applaud my brother, Honorable Masara, for bringing this particular bill, the bill of 2023-2024, that is bill number 23 of 2024, is because if you look at our police officers, majority of them, they are extremely stressed. And the source of the stress is emanating from a number of reasons. One of them, very poor working conditions, Mr. Speaker. Like what my brother, Honorable, our council just mentioned about police sharing house. You find you have a family, you are sharing with other police officers at a very deplorable working environment, Mr. Speaker. That definitely will result to stress. Mr. Speaker, if you look at a small country like Namibia, whose economy is actually much weaker or smaller compared to Kenya, they remunerate the police very well. I happened to have been there when I used to work with United Nations, and I can attest to you, Mr. Speaker, Namibia police are not corruptible. And the reason why they're not corruptible is because they are well remunerated. If you look at our country, we talk of police being corrupt. The simple reason they are corrupt is because we have ignored them. We talk of police reforms. No one seems to pay attention to this, Mr. Speaker. Now, if you come to the insurance for our police officers, it's even more worrying, Mr. Speaker. We have security officers who serve as our guards at our homes. I mean, for those who have bodyguards at home, particularly senior members. But also, when we go with police officers, you get very shocking information from our officer, Mr. Speaker. Imagine your officer goes to, a family member of your security bodyguard going to an hospital and the insurer the officer has is dishonored by the hospital, Mr. Speaker. How do you expect such a person to effectively discharge his or her duties, Mr. Speaker? And these are some of the reasons which are contributing to serious stress. And we say we should not cure symptoms by looking at the cause. So as much as we come up with programs to support psychosocial well-being of our police officers, we must factor what is contributing to this stress, Mr. Speaker, and that is where the rock or where the whole issue starts from, Mr. Speaker. Importantly, if you look at our police officers, Mr. Speaker, now we have an increased cost of living. Of course, you'll be talking of the finance bill, the new taxes. Everyone is feeling the pinch, and their salaries are at the same level, Mr. Speaker. So how do you imagine the police officers to survive under poor working conditions, poor pay, and all these definitely will result to stress. We have been seeing some of the results of stress, Mr. Speaker, where officers have actually committed suicide, taking away their lives, others even shooting their bosses, committing crime when they are supposed to restore order and peace, Mr. Speaker, because of the stress which has built over time, Mr. Speaker. So in a nutshell, Mr. Speaker, what I would recommend as a prioritization or as a way to deal with the issues of psychosocial support or to deal with the stress contributing or which require psychosocial support is one to focus on improving salaries and benefits for our security officers, the police and other security officers in that order, Mr. Speaker. We also need to look at better housing and the living conditions for our police force. Otherwise, we'll keep on talking of psychosocial support, but the main cause of stress, no one is paying attention to that, Mr. Speaker. We also need to look at structuring working hours, Mr. Speaker. Our officers, you find some of them are actually working beyond the stipulated 8 working hours. And even leave days, Mr. Speaker, all that has to be factored so that we can mitigate the causes of stress in order to be able to properly support our officers to be able to discharge the job they're supposed to do, Mr. Speaker. Now, recently, we heard the cries of Gen Zs who are complaining of excessive use of force by our police officers and issues of brutality, abductions, and all these. Mr. Speaker, you may not know, but perhaps one of the reasons why police officers are even using firearm excessively is perhaps because of the stress. Because if someone is stressed, they may want to discharge or to offload the stress by improper use of firearm or even contributing to this police brutality and other vices that are linked to stress management, Mr. Speaker. So for me, before I submit, Mr. Speaker, I would recommend that proper stress management training need to be initiated, targeting police officers across the country, and more so, if possible, also look at the other discipline forces, those who are working at the borders, etc. So with those few remarks, I submit, Mr. Speaker, and I'm ready to work on amendments to that effect. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Well said. The member for Siaya County. That's Honorable Mbaka.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.